Good morning. Welcome to the Marshall County Board of Supervisors regular session here on June 5th, 2024, 9 a.m. here in the courthouse first floor meeting room. Notice to the public, the Board of Supervisors welcomes comments from the public during the time allowed for discussion. You're requested to approach the podium right over here. Utilize the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and this is more so for recording than for amplifying. Of course, use your time used to present your remarks in order that others may be given the opportunity to speak. The normal process on any agenda is for the chair to read the item from the agenda. The board's given the opportunity to comment on the issue and or place a motion on the floor. An opportunity for discussion may be presented, at which time the public may participate, and a roll call vote will follow. We'll begin with our roll, please.
Heil.
Yes.
Selassie.
Yes.
Hibbs.
Yes.
So could you please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We'll start with, we need a motion to approve today's agenda.
I'd like to amend the agenda here this morning. I would like to pull SBII from the consent agenda and treat it as a separate item for discussion.
Okay. Is that a motion?
It's a motion.
Okay, I'll second the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Any further discussion?
Was that 5 instead of S by any chance?
5 or is it S?
Yeah, 5BII.
5BII.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just where he said S.
What I wrote was 5, so.
All right, the motion and the second to approve the amended agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Hibbs.
Yes.
Heil.
Yes.
Selassie.
Yes.
All right, we will conduct the consent agenda minus that item, and then we'll, where would we like to move that item? To immediately following consent, or?
Yeah.
Or we could move it after the presentations too.
That's not a bad idea to have our presentations out of the way.
Okay.
We could move it to, you want it 8A or 9A? Or 10A? Because that'd get us past the letting.
Let's do it right after 10.
10A then, we'll make it 10A.
Perfect. All right, to our consent agenda. Approve claims as audited. Approve claims. Authorize the auditor and recorder to issue the payment of the same. Listing the claims paid at this meeting and all claims paid in the current month will be published as part of the first meeting of the following month. Personnel changes. Approve new hire, Marshall County Assistant County Attorney Morgan Smith, full-time Assistant County Attorney, $74,500 annual salary to start on or after August 1st, 2024. File manure management plans, Blue Valley Pork, number 59449, 3255 140th Street, Marshalltown, signed with no changes. Burt Farm and Livestock, Site 8, number 59927, 1310 Taylor Avenue, Marshalltown, signed with no changes. Jared Whitaker, number 70163, at 1458 180th Street, Clemens, signed with no changes. MTM Farms, LC, number 61010, 3016 Marsh Avenue, Haverhill, signed with no changes. Langmaid Farms, number 58012, at 697 North 75th Avenue, West Newton, signed with changes. Hog Heaven, number 70146, at 1779 320th Street, Melbourne, signed with changes. And Picker Brothers Finisher, number 68561, 1814 290th Street, Melbourne, signed with no changes. And that is the end of our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have that motion, the second on consent agenda. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hibbs.
Yes.
Heil.
Yes.
Selassie.
Yes.
All right. Next up, we have number 7, presentation by Heather Thomas, Main Street, Streetscape on north side of courthouse with possible Marshall County cost share. Heather, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. So I am gonna use some assistance on a PowerPoint from the back, so bear with us while that comes up a little bit. But I wanted to provide an update. The last time that we chatted, it would have been at the joint city-county meeting back in March of 2023. So we've had some progress since then. We've had a little bit of delay with some staff challenges at the city, but we are making progress, and we did want to provide you an update with all of that. So if you go to the next slide, please. So my goal again today is just to provide that update, and then I do have 2 requests from the county. As part of the work we've done and the discussion that we had briefly back in March of 2023, there was a larger discussion about making the North Courthouse area a little bit more of a plaza space, an event space, and somewhere that people can gather. So we've kind of looked in some very preliminary concepts of what that could turn into. And then my second request is for some support from the county in the amount of $34,000, which I'll go into some more detail here as we move on. So, thank you. Okay, so our project, this next phase, it's going to be the second phase of downtown. State Street under current construction is phase 1. This phase is for 5 blocks along Center Street. It's going to be 2 blocks from Church to State. It's even changed a little bit since this graphic. We are proposing along the courthouse block both back-in angled parking on the east and west side now. As we go up along Center Street, north of Main Street, we're gonna look at parallel parking on the east side. It'll also be part of the loading zone, right there kind of next to the Zamora's area. On the west side, again, back-in angled parking. We're trying to, with this project, balance the request for additional parking, but also encourage more pedestrian-friendly areas, utilizing the parking lots and then walking into this area as kind of the heart of downtown. As we look at Main Street itself, you can see that block there between Center Street and First Ave, where we've kind of expanded the south side of the street a little bit into the courthouse area. As we go further to the east, we'd be looking at parallel parking on the north side and then back in angled parking on the south as well. So we're really looking to enhance the area, not only from a streetscape perspective, but also as a draw to the heart of downtown. The tornado obviously is an event that we're turning into an opportunity down here. With the tornado, Marshalltown Strong kind of became the logo and the image following the tornado. And for Marshalltown, as you can see, the courthouse was very prominent in that logo. And it's something that we want to represent also in this design as we move forward. So if we'll go to the next slide. So as we really look at this block right in front of the courthouse, we wanted to figure out how we can capitalize on this space, draw people to this area, not only for visitors of downtown, but visitors to the courthouse as well. This is definitely a concept only. So if you see something you like or see something you hate, doesn't mean that it's going to be the final product. But we really wanted to expand that area into the green space and make that a little bit more inviting, friendly. There'll be some concrete seat walls and those kind of places that are able to be used during the day. Like I said, visitors to downtown, visitors to the courthouse. That area would also be a little bit more pedestrian friendly in the sense that we're not going to have a full 6-inch curb on the south side of the road where that space can kind of spill over for events. So this would be the block that would be shut down more often than the rest of downtown when we do have some of the events that we want to increase pedestrian safety and visitor safety by closing off the road. That is something that we did coordinate with the county on. I think some early discussions, we were talking about the east side of the courthouse, how that block there on First Ave might be conducive to this space, but after discussion with the county, we kind of pivoted a little bit and moved it up to Main Street area to accommodate that request. So as we keep moving along, please, thank you. One of the things that's really, really important to us is that we preserve the history, the architecture of what we have downtown today. So we're talking about the downtown businesses, the historic businesses, but also the courthouse in general, because like I said, it is kind of the gem of downtown, the heart of downtown, not only for Marshalltown, but Marshall County as well. So we're going to be really cognizant of the architecture of this building as we incorporate that throughout, not only the Main Street design, but especially in this event block right here in front of the courthouse. Again, concept only, but as we talk a little bit about a gateway monument, whether that is a true arch, kind of historical nod to an arch that previously was in Marshalltown, but also could be pillars and those kind of things where we're really trying to play off of the shape and the form of the courthouse and the materials and bring that up as well. So again, looking at how we incorporate and enhance the courthouse as we kind of spill that out a little bit more to the north area here. Lighting is another thing that's been discussed a lot downtown. So we are talking, yes, street lighting and pedestrian lighting, but also how we can bring some of the lighting into some of the areas to make it a little bit more of a placemaking location. One of the discussions has also included at the lower right-hand corner, possibly some areas with overhead string lighting to provide a little bit more of an ambience and an ability to gather and celebrate. So with that, we'll go to the next one. So as we're doing this, we want to bring some vibrancy downtown, but still try to make sure we're tying into the history. So that's a really gentle balance that, again, we've not figured out yet. We're at the 30% stage, but this is just kind of a concept board that we wanted to share with you. And some of the things that we're looking at is figuring out a way to take some of the historic color palette, but find some pops of color that's really representative of the cultural diversity that we have in Marshalltown today. And then the goal with this project is to provide kind of a canvas so that events and business owners have the opportunity to do more activities downtown and bring more people. So one of the things we have up here is the seating area at the parking stalls. The city's not going in and putting those in, but we're providing for the space that would be an opportunity in the future to bring some of those elements in. Some of the glass on the right-hand side is a nice way to bring some pops of colors that we can have some historic elements, maybe some metal work and those kind of things that can tie nicely as well. And so again, we're really trying to be cognizant as we move forward and intentional in design. We've done quite a bit of a public outreach in the last year to really listen to stakeholders, not only business owners downtown, but the general public as well. And meeting with a couple representatives from the county as well to try to figure out how we can make this all work and collaborate together. Thank you. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions. We also have Casey and Greg with Bolton and Mink here with us today. But my goal today is to get the county's permission to proceed kind of with the concept of bringing some of this into the area of the North Courthouse yard, and then also request some assistance from the county in the amount of $34,000. Right now, our estimated construction is $7.93 million. Of that, about $1 million of it is in the area that's south of kind of the parking area in the courthouse block and east of the parking also along Center Street. So kind of in this event space, we've kind of got a budget of about $1 million in work in that area. So we currently, with the city, have a design contract with Bolton and Mink for about $654,000 with a proposed amendment of $98,000. Of that $98,000, $30,000 of that was to increase the lighting opportunities downtown. That was not part of our original scope. So that difference of $68,000 is kind of what we're considering the increase related to some of this extra outreach and some of this event space. So we're requesting a split of $34,000 to the county and $34,000 to the city for that. And I would open it up to questions.
Heather, can you talk a little bit about the feedback you've received from the businesses that are directly north of the courthouse?
Yeah, so I will say we've had a lot of events, and the businesses north of the courthouse will have a little bit more tied to the office space than they do some of the other foot traffic areas. We've got some concerns more for what happens during construction, not necessarily what happens after construction. So we are talking about how to best accommodate them. We're using some of the areas on State Street as a little bit of a trial run on how to direct pedestrian flow and those kind of things. But our plan is to keep pedestrian access to those businesses during construction. We're gonna keep a similar sidewalk, 4 or 5 foot wide, right along the businesses while we do a bulk of the work, and allow pedestrian access to continue to patron those businesses during construction, and there'll only be very short times where we're working directly in front of the door, maybe on some sidewalk that they would be shut down. I know we've talked to them about some rear access as well. But some of the positive feedback we've received from those businesses and developers is a lot of those don't have a fire sprinkler system currently. So one of the aspects of this project is really replacing some of the infrastructure below ground. We don't have sanitary sewer in this block, but our water main is definitely at the end of life for Marshalltown Waterworks. So we're using that as an opportunity where these buildings and businesses can actually become a higher utilized building with the fire sprinkler system. So most of the feedback we're getting from this particular block is related to those types of aspects. As we move outside both east and west, they're really just wanting a project that's a wow factor that's gonna assist them in bringing people and foot traffic downtown.
Heather, are you eventually going to ask the county for this $1 million?
I don't believe we'll be coming at a $1 million request to you. I do think it is reasonable that there'd be additional discussion in the future about some potential cost share on construction, but none of that has been discussed at this point. I don't want to turn away $1 million, so if you want to, say, hey, make a motion today for $1 million, we'll take it. But that's not my intent from the city. That would all be the city's or the county's cost. We're really trying to maximize the dollars and where we put them. If you look back to the downtown implementation plan and the downtown master plan, there was an event block or event space actually kind of over by the old hospital area. Instead of doing that, let's use the space that we have and collaborate with the city and county to maximize and bring that space down here. So that project potentially would not be something that proceeds on the city's behalf.
So am I understanding it correctly, the back-end angle parking is now on the west side too, and the north side
Of the courthouse.
of the courthouse?
Yep, and so we would also switch the east side to back and angle parking just for consistency.
So all three sides would have the back-end angle parking?
Yep.
Okay.
So we were able to do that with switching up some bike lane traffic. The bike lanes on Main Street right now are getting moved over to State Street. And then the bike lanes that are on Center right now are gonna go over to Second Street. So that provides a safer route for the bike riders in this area. And then it also provides for a little extra space that we're able to do two things with. Switch parallel parking to angle parking, but that also provide a little bit more pedestrian space.
Do you have a plan to educate drivers on how that works?
We will definitely have a large educational opportunity to do that. I have plenty of weaknesses, but one of them is parallel parking. So I'm excited for angle parking, whether it's back in or forward, either is fine with me. But for those people who are nervous about back in angle parking, one of the things you can do today is you can go over to Fairway or Hy-Vee or Walmart, and if you just, when there's nobody around in the backside of the thing, go down the drive and back into a stall. It's actually very, very easy. I know there's some other metropolitan areas that have implemented that, and there's proven engineering studies about the increased safety of back and angle parking versus regular pull-in angle parking.
Was the one column on the design, was that to match the chimneys of the courthouse?
It's kind of to simulate the building as a whole, but definitely those are things that we're looking at just to give a nod to the courthouse. Yeah.
When you had said earlier you spoke with the county on things, were you on that committee or was Lucas in on that?
Lucas and I.
All right.
Yeah.
Were there any concerns from you on that design with the trees or any of that stuff that's? Thanks,
No,
Lucas.
I think Heather and I and Greg have had quite a few conversations, and Carol's been in a few of those as well, and I think I really like it. It's a great way to showcase the courthouse, and that's something that I think we as a county really appreciate as well. So.
And we've got some more opportunities for collaboration. I know one of the things Lucas and I recently talked about was there's some drains from the courthouse themselves, and potentially looking at opportunities to tie those into this project to improve that situation for the county as well.
Excellent. Any other questions for Heather?
I don't think so, not right now.
Thank you, Heather.
Yes, thank you. Do we want to make a motion at all for this item today?
Well, I believe we still have some funds available in our economic development line item in this year's budget that could cover the cost of this, so I would make a motion that we commit $34,000 as requested from the city towards the development of the plan from the economic development funding.
I'll second.
All right, we have the motion, the second. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Hibbs,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Heather. And look forward to the continued work to make our courthouse look great on that, especially on that north side. I like the simplicity of that, so.
I will go ahead and prepare that claim for the next board meeting so we get it out of this year's budget money.
Perfect, thank you.
That's what we want to do.
Perfect. Awesome. On to number 8, Trails, Inc., Iowa River's Edge Trail Presentation and Funding Request Discussion and Possible Action.
Good morning, everybody. I think Jeff's getting his computer ready, so we got a few slides to show.
Great.
So my name is Bruce Johnson, and I'm the Vice President of Trails, Inc. Jeff is the President, and Andrea Bolton is with the Iowa National Heritage Foundation. So thank you for your time this morning.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Get that going. So we're working hard over the last a little over a month to raise funds for and to develop an application for the federal government for an ATIP grant, and then Andrea's been heavily involved with that, with her role. So with that said, we're pushing to raise money, both local as well as state and county, and we're here to talk with you about what the county's participation in this whole project.
Yeah, well, thanks everybody. Jeff Schneider. So we're here today to share some information, here to ask for a county financial commitment to this Trails project, and we're going to talk about why to do that, the long-term economic development perspectives, as well as quality of life, and we could have a rideable 34-mile trail in less than 5 years. So a few stats. This is kind of the path. It runs from Marshalltown to Steamboat Rock. We have a little over 2 miles that are already completed out to Radio Tower Road, which is pretty much the limit of Marshalltown. And then it goes up to Steamboat Rock. There is 10 miles from Steamboat Rock to Eldora that is finished trail at the northern end of the project. Connects 7 communities, technically 8 if you count Melbourne. It won't be on the exact same trail, but the same trail path. There will be 55 distinct miles of rideable, walkable trail in Marshall and Hardin counties when this is completed. Some of the things this trail highlights are the diverse landscapes of central Iowa, wetlands, prairie, savanna, forest, everything. It really is a great example of what Iowa used to look like, and it really showcases the beauty of this area. And it's really close to the water. There's a ton of water recreation opportunities in the future. I think it's a lot of things that people are really looking to see. There are a number of amenities on the trail. Here in Marshalltown, the Ann-Kaiser Trailhead, I'll have a slide right after this, I believe, to show what that looks like. Connecting to the Lynn Creek District, which is under revitalization from an Iowa Economic Development Authority grant and support from local people and City of Marshalltown. Downtown connection on 2nd Street up to the new downtown and the cycle track. The 13th Street District is not directly connected. Hopefully it will be someday, but that's a big draw for people. Raymond's Veteran Park, which is a wonderful trailhead in Albion that was built before the trail's even there, which we love. It's great. And then there's a lot of northern trailheads in the communities on the north side of this trail.
Jeff?
Yes,
Can you
go
go
ahead,
back? Can you
Yep.
go back?
Yep.
Is that potentially where the trail is going to go
Yeah,
here?
it's exactly where the trail
right
will
behind?
go. It would be don't know if you'll be able to see my mouse. Yeah, right here. This is
Yep.
the trail right there.
Okay.
So that's where the railroad used to run to the
Yep.
West Albion.
Names of these guys.
So this is kind of what the trailhead will look like in Marshalltown. So gardens will be a good gathering area. It will be kind of where, it will be in the same area where the skate park and the softball diamonds are today. So there'll be parking. It'll be a great place for people to come, you know, bring their truck or van, unload, and then ride in any direction.
And just as Heather pointed out earlier, these are conceptual, so they're not finalized.
Not
it's
final,
just
but they're getting closer.
yeah.
So why do we need this? Year-round outdoor recreation. I know I hear it from my peers. I've heard it from others. You know, we need more opportunities to do things in Marshall County. So this will provide, you know, 4 seasons activities outdoors. It's not just for bikes. If you walk around on the trails that exist today, it's mostly walkers and runners. There's hiking opportunities, camping opportunities, hunting, fishing, kayaking. All these opportunities are available on this trail. It makes Marshall County a destination. Eventually, we're going to be part of 2 nationwide trails. It's projected that 1.7 million visitors annually from outside the state will make use of those trails. A lot of them will come through this area. They'll eat at our restaurants, they'll stay in our hotels. They'll add to the vibrancy of our community. And so the impact of this on the smaller towns like Albion, Liscum, Union, Gifford, Eldora are going to be even bigger than Marshalltown because just the sheer size of the project. But the city of Marshalltown and central Iowa is going to really become a destination. People do drive to these trails. You think, well, who would come to Marshalltown to ride? But we had some customers in town the other day, and 2 of the guys are like, oh yeah, we come to Marshalltown all the time to ride the 330 trail and the Lynn Creek Trail just for a change of pace, and we love eating at Ocean City. So they do come, and people from Marshalltown I know go all over to seek these trails out to do these longer rides.
And
so
personally, Jeff, you know,
Yeah, go ahead.
my wife Lori and I, we travel around the state, around, you know, the central part of the state. We go to trails down in Des Moines. We've gone all the way up to Backbone State Park and ride up there as well. So there's a lot of people that, you know, throw their bikes in the back of the car and then travel. And I think with this trail, we'll get, you know, the central location that we have. A lot of people will come here to ride on this end or on the other end in Eldora. So riding back and forth. As well, we have other riders that our neighbor Charlie Smith and Clyde Lawler and others that ride on the roads, the county roads all the time, which is dangerous. You know, we fear that, people riding on our roads. I used to do that as well, don't do that anymore, but getting people to be able to ride on this kind of trail, longer distances, you know, they'll go 70 miles at a crack. So riding up to Eldora and back would be great, it'd be very nice.
And another big reason is to, you know, combat the brain drain from rural Iowa. Give people one more reason to live, work, and play here. So economic development, there is empirical evidence that trails increase taxable sales in the jurisdictions where they are. They create millions of dollars in economic activity. When people are riding, they're spending money. The new businesses come, they create jobs. More people live in the area, they pay more sales tax. It helps just to build strong towns and strong taxpayers, and property values increase. 70% of the people in Marshall County live within this trail or a 5-minute drive, so this will impact the majority of residents in this county. Like I said earlier, it's a great way to experience the Iowa countryside, both what it is today and then what it was pre-population. And you really can enjoy it all year long. And you know, the accessibility part is, you know, as bike tech gets better, the e-bikes, everybody, that's kind of the rage in the biking world right now. What it does is it extends the longevity of people's riding careers into their 70s or 80s. So not only do you have no cost to use the trail, so it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter what language you speak, it doesn't matter what hours you work. It also really doesn't matter your age. Everybody can enjoy it, from a stroller or just a side saddle on a bike, all the way up to an e-bike or, you know, an e-recumbent, anything. So why do we kind of have the short notice on this? So we do have a grant application that's due Monday, June 17th. We're working on that with Andrea Bolton, the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation, and Hardin County. But the Hardin County group got awarded a $2 million grant in April. And so what we're applying for is called an ATIP grant. It's a federal grant for bicycle pedestrian trails. And before, we would have had to raise $4.7 million by June 17th. When they got this, it became a $2.7 million gap. And so we just decided, you know what, this is worth going after. This is our first chance we've ever had to finish the trail. We can do this. And so that's why we're here today. We have been fundraising. It is a $19 million project that's remaining. We have 21 miles or maybe a little more of paving to get from Radio Tower Road to Eldora, but there's also a little bit of project here in Marshalltown to connect all of our existing trails, the Lynn Creek Trail, to this. We have 7 medium to larger bridges. The 3 largest that are remaining are on the screen. On the leftmost, that's the Iowa River Bridge, right just to the northwest of town between Albion and Marshalltown. The next one is between Liscum and Union over the Iowa River, and then the South Fork, which is a wooden trestle bridge that's, I think it's 380 feet. It's a really long bridge, but it's a different type of span. So those are kind of our 3 biggest things to do on the project, and we've been working with Snyder and Associates. Go ahead, Carol.
Where's the South Fork Bridge at?
The South Fork Bridge would be just north of Gifford. So it's just right before the confluence
Yeah.
of the Iowa River and the South Fork.
Okay.
So we've been working with Snyder and Associates getting these engineering estimates. So $19 million project remaining to make it a rideable trail. There are other costs to make it a fully finished trail, but this is what we're going for to get the rideable trail. So the federal program, it's an 80% cost share, so we have to come up with, we're going to ask for $12 million from ATIP. We have to provide $3 million in non-federal money, so that gives us $15 million. The additional $4 million will come from grants already awarded, like the $2 million that Hardin just got. So the $3 to $2.7 million is some cash on hand that the organizations have. And so we think we can put together a really compelling application for this. I know it's really small, so you can't all read it, but we really do. We think we fit the criteria really well, and we can win this. So again, connecting 7 communities, tons of opportunities for walking, biking, hiking, canoeing, everything. We have had really broad public support. We've had a number of public engagement events. We've been talking to everybody. We are raising money. We've raised privately about $900,000 so far. This really is about the safety of bikers and pedestrians that really want to, get out in the countryside, and there's just not that opportunity today. We have broad state, county, we hope, and community support, and the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation is really helping us with the grant writing. And so what we're asking for you today is we would like $2 million toward the project. We would take it as a pledge over the next 3 years. I know next year's, or the upcoming fiscal year is already set. If it was in the grant, if we could get granted the money in year 2 and 3 that we're asking for, that would be fine. Of course, it'd be contingent upon us receiving this grant. If we don't win the grant, you don't owe anything. We really need your support in any fashion for the application, because one of the big criteria is how broad is the public support. Do you have support from the local communities that the trail is going through? Do you have support from the county organizations? Do you have support from the populace in general? And we really think if Marshall County can get on board, we could check every single box. And so that's what we'd like to see. Thank you. What questions do you have?
How many miles of the trail are in Marshall County versus Hardin County?
I believe we have 11 more miles. Or 13.
Do you know, Andrew?
Do you know off the top of your head? I have so many numbers in my head, I don't know. It's 13 or 14, I believe, is what we have to the county line from where we finished today.
And Hardin County has?
Approximately this, it's about 50-50.
It's about the
Yeah,
same,
it
okay.
is. So the total project cost to this point has been about 34, the all-in project cost when it's done will be about $34 million. So what we're asking for is about 6% contribution for the entire project.
There's 19 million remaining
Yes,
on the project with the $12 million grant,
yes.
and you're asking for 2 million from us, and then what's the other remaining 5?
Hardin has.
Hardin has that 2,
They have that too.
and then what's the remaining 3?
If we could get $2 million, that would close pretty much the entire gap. We have cash on hand from previous fundraising efforts. We do have some outstanding awards for other components of this project. So this would get us to the end.
I'll just
Go
add.
ahead. Yeah, this is
Sorry.
Andrea. Come on up.
Do you wanna, yeah,
Yeah,
Sure.
go up.
do you
Sure.
wanna introduce yourself?
Andrea Bolton with Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. As Jeff mentioned, once Hardin County was going after a grant to look at the South Fork Bridge north of Gifford and to pave from where they ended in Eldora down to Gifford. And that was about a $4 million project. When they received that $2 million grant, they also received a regional grant for another $350,000 or so, or our pending approval of another grant of about 350,000 or so, and had some cash on hand, as Jeff mentioned. So they were closing in on raising that 4 million, which is included as part of that total 19 million. And so the 19 million is covered by, yes, the $12 million that we're asking for, some of those grants that Hardin had already secured for that phase, and then all of the private fundraising that Hardin and Marshall County have been doing in partnership together. And I'll just say that, you know, even if we are not successful with ATIP, we have put together a pretty robust Plan B strategy that outlines where every single dollar would come from to make up for that lost ATIP award. So any contribution that you make, you know, I know Jeff mentioned that a $2 million request would be contingent on ATIP, but I would also encourage you to consider that making that pledge, and so it's able to be leveraged for those other grants if we are not successful. Because I think the overall goal and the excitement and momentum that we're building with this fundraising campaign to be competitive with ATIP has really pushed a lot of, the state has noticed, the state has provided a letter of support for this federal grant.
The state,
the state DOT, Department of
Okay,
Transportation.
DOT, okay.
So they administer a lot of the other grants we would go for. And we've also received some congressional letters of support. There's been a lot of notice that has happened just through this campaign for this particular grant. So I'm confident that one way or another, this is on the path of getting done and to be rideable in the next 5 or so years, as Jeff and Bruce have mentioned.
so Andrea, can you give us some perspective on, like, when they award these grants? How many do they award? Are they awarded like once a year, and do they consider geography?
Sure. So this is a brand new grant program.
Okay.
So it will be highly competitive. And as Jeff mentioned in the slide, there's about 45 million available, and we are asking for 12 million. They take a few things into consideration. They take historically underserved communities into consideration. That's probably their top priority. Marshalltown does have census tracts that lend itself to being competitive in that arena. They also take into account geography and rural versus urban. It's not a scoring criteria, but it is taken into consideration, and then geography as a whole from just generally across the country.
Do they try and spread it out?
Right, right. It is something that they hope to make it's tied to the transportation bill, so we all know how that goes, but it is anticipated that this will be an annual program, assuming that transportation bill and these programs are renewed regularly.
Do you know, is anyone else in Iowa applying?
I do not know of anybody else in Iowa applying. I will also share that we have the support of the Rails to Trails Conservancy because it is part of the Great American Rail Trail, and so we're hoping to have them also review our grant application and provide some points. They are the organization that advocated for this program to be established.
At one time, there was a group involved with trails that were snowmobilers. Are they still involved? Is there any discussion with them?
We haven't had any discussion with them.
Okay. I mean, I know it doesn't, there was discussion, I think, about having a path alongside the trail that would be, usable.
I think we'd certainly be open to discussing that. It's
Okay.
just, you just have to have certain arrangements that if
Right.
you don't have snow, you can't ride because it
Yeah.
mars up the concrete. But yeah, it's definitely something we could have the conversations about.
Okay. I would like to hear from Emily about your perspective on this, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Emily Herring, Director of Marshall County Conservation. This trail, I think, is a very important part of our community and our county. it's a kind of a double-edged sword for me because obviously there's recreational funds that I could use, but I think the bigger picture for our county, this is really, really important. I think it's going to help our rural communities a lot. And it also provides access to a lot of our areas. Our campgrounds, Timmins Grove won't be far from this, and I think that'll be utilized more. Grammar Grove has a kind of a primitive campground right now, but I know bicyclists are very willing to camp in those kind of areas as well. So I do think it will connect our recreational areas very well. I do have to say I have concerns about long-term maintenance, but I'm talking about repaving in the future and how to do that. But I think that most bike trail people have those concerns, and there are possible steps in the future of funding sources that will help us to be able to do that. But in the long run, I think this is just a really vital and important part that will help Marshalltown and all of our communities. And with a $12 million possible grant match out there, I just feel like it's something that we can't say no to. That's my personal opinion.
So Emily, do you utilize the volunteers from Trails to help with trail maintenance and cleanup?
I do, yes. So for the Merle Stubbs is one of my go-to guys. He cleans our trail, the Lynn Creek Trail, for us. They also have donated the Iowa, I always say it wrong, Iowa Valley Trails Club?
Bicycle club.
Bicycle Club.
Yeah.
They've donated to us to help repair trails and stuff like that. So the smaller projects I'm not so worried about. It's the big projects. And then, mowing is something that we'll have to, but at this time, the maintenance of it is, out in the future and what we're going to do and who's going to necessarily be responsible for it. So, yeah.
What is the average lifespan before needing to repave on a bike trail, do we know?
That's not my question. I can't answer that.
You're asking a lot of questions that I was not had my brain on for today. It depends based on concrete, asphalt, or crushed limestone. I believe that this is a concrete trail, so it tends to have a little bit longer of a lifespan. I think the Raccoon River Valley Trail hit 30 years before they started kind of a overlay program. I would have to double check that, but we're just now starting to see a lot of those major destination trails, the Chautauqua, the Raccoon, and those getting to the point of needing to be resurfaced, and they're decades old. I will say the benefit of having a concrete trail is that depending on the engineering services, sometimes patching those locally, is the equivalent of patching a sidewalk. They're very much dependent on the size of the need, so it makes it a little bit easier to do maintenance on those locally before it gets to a much larger problem and needing a larger maintenance fund to do a big overlay.
Yeah, but this whole trail will have a great base. I mean, trains ran on it for 100 years. Very compacted, so you couldn't ask for a better sub-base for concrete trail.
And right now it's rail banked, correct?
Correct.
So it is a transportation pathway already, correct?
Correct.
So many of the new trails going in are concrete now because of the length of, the longevity of it, as well as the cost of the blacktop materials, and the maintenance of that is higher. And I go back to my work days, and all these refineries across the country put in these heavy oil projects, which extracted more and more product out of the oil. So the asphalt, the base coat materials aren't there any longer, or they're reduced substantially. So that's why blacktop has gone up so much. Asphalt is much more expensive than it was 25 years ago.
I think there was some discussion about the possibility of applying for Rebuild Iowa infrastructure funds. Do you have any update on what the status of that might be, the RIF funding?
I need Sherry's assistant.
Thank you for muting. As we were.
Yeah.
Which project in particular were you?
Well, the RIF the RIF funding, I believe in the next fiscal year for the state set aside some funds for trails. Do you have
Yeah, I
plans for
believe- Yeah, I
that?
believe that the two buckets that were set aside, we have not heard any updates on where that money will be going exactly.
Okay, but do you intend on applying for that, I guess is my question.
Yes, we plan on continuing to apply for grants for this
Okay.
trail project and additional trail projects going forward. So it's on our radar.
Yeah.
But as far as this particular, since of our
Right.
tight deadline,
Right.
it's not the top priority thing to apply
Yeah.
for at the moment.
Well, I guess my thought was Senator Edler kind of went to bat for us
Absolutely.
on getting some funding set aside for trails,
Yes,
so.
we're definitely gonna go after it.
Okay.
The issue is, since we have to have our grant turned in less than 2 weeks, I
Yeah.
don't think we can make the turnaround on that money. So we're just kind of trying to focus on what's in front of us at the minute.
But that ties in great with the Plan B, right? We're not going to wait until we hear back from ATIP whether or not we've been successful. We're going to continue to move ahead and go after funding. There's a round of funding available July 1st through the state, through the RIF program, the State Recreational Trails Fund. So we'll be putting in applications there. Later this summer, CAT grants and Destination Iowa grants will become available. This fall, federal recreational trail grants will be available. August, we'll have REAP grants available. And so we're going to go ahead and move forward applying for all of those, under the presumption that we don't get ATIP, so that way we're prepared either way. And if we do receive that state funding or these different state programs while we're waiting to hear on ATIP and we get both and we're flush, that's great, because it will enable us to take the private dollars that we've raised to build a endowment for Emily to be able to take care of the trail long term. So it well thought out strategy by your local folks here that I think it makes a lot of sense and is definitely a recipe for a success of this project.
Would a future RIF award allow the county to reduce their obligation in the future if we made a commitment?
Possibly.
If that's what it takes to get this done, I think we could talk about it. If you could figure out how to word it, I'd be more than happy to discuss it.
I've been doing most of the talking, so you guys should talk.
Do you have any questions?
I don't.
All right. So we would need a motion today for a commitment.
Do you want to talk about what our options are?
Well, I think when you're, obviously, we do not have the money set aside in this. I mean, this is really technically 4 budget years if you're talking starting today through the rest of the month. Next year, which is budget's already set, and then the 2 years following, and you're asking for $2 million in there. And legally, how does that work? Can we officially commit that these funds are allocated, set aside for this project? That's obviously not possible. This is just a pledge. And so the process, if we decide to do this today, how that would work is, as the budget years come up, we'd have to figure out how to work it in the budget, and if it's doesn't work in our budget of existing funds, potential borrowing would have to occur. And so the protection to the taxpayer in this in a pledge today is there are still the hearings and all the processes that go through all of our budgets and all of any type of bonding or borrowing that we would do. So there's still the protection to the taxpayer today by us making to the pledge, because there still is a process later of that funding. So, but if the board would want to commit to wanting to do those funds, that's how it would work, and there still is that official process of allocating later.
So we would have a motion that it would be our intent to support this at up to $2 million
Correct.
over a 4-year period,
Yep.
counting this year's budget.
Yep, and that's how other counties have done this to meet grant deadlines for these types of projects. So that's how that would work.
Anything more for our folks up
I
here?
do not have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks much.
All right, and then do we have a motion? And then if we have that motion, then we can open up for further discussion from the public.
I will make the motion that Marshall County commit up to $2 million over a 4-year budget period for
second.
the Iowa River's Edge Trail.
I'll second.
All right, we have the motion and the second. And I'll just open with, I mean, I think it's,
And I'm gonna say fiscal year 24, 5, 6, and 7.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. I think that's the biggest question is the paying for it. When you're talking about the type of match return, $2 million to gain $12 million, you know, this isn't like a 50-50 match. This is a very good deal in this type of public-private partnership. So it makes sense. The project's a great project. I don't think there's anything you can knock on this project. It's more so how to pay for it. And when you have the realistically 3 budget years to get this done, my goal would be to obviously not have to borrow for it, to work it into our budgets and find more creative ways similar to leveraging any other funds like the RIF that you spoke about, other sources, so that we're not having to dip into borrowing to do it, because that would be my ultimate goal of this. And that's how it would work if we commit to that today.
Can I ask, this grant is for $12 million at this point right now.
Correct.
Could it be reduced on their end, and we could maybe only get $2 or $3 million?
If it is reduced, the scope would be reduced, so we wouldn't be on the,
It would percentage out for the county then what their part would be. Do I
well,
understand?
so right now, where the scope is, we're gonna complete the whole thing. If they give us $12 million, we would have to complete the whole thing. If they reduce their gift down to $2 million, then there wouldn't be it is my understanding that there wouldn't be the expectation that we completed everything. They may just look at, we really want you to focus in on Marshalltown to Albion. And as such, the grant is prepared in a way that kind of segments things out, so that they can say the greatest impact would be, if we can't give you 12, the greatest impact would be here, and we'll give you money that completes this.
Still at an 80-20
Still at an
percentage?
80-20. And obviously, at that point, we would revisit what's, sorry, do I need to? What's what? Is that in Marshall County? Is that in Hardin County? What matching dollars do we need to make that all fair and appropriate?
$15 million minimum project size?
Yes. Well, I mean, if they're gonna make up the rules and not give us as much, I think.
So it is stipulated in the grant application that the minimum project size is $15 million. So if it becomes a less than $50 million project, then it wouldn't qualify. So I don't know how they could reduce it down. I think this is an all or nothing, 12 million or nothing.
Yeah. I mean, where right now, these types of hypothetical questions, they would be throwing rules out and creating new ones. So I don't think that they would do that in the first year.
Any discussion from the public on this? Yes.
I'm Harold Lanning, 1994 Vine Avenue. And I'm listening to this presentation, and it sounds really glamorous and glorious, but I want to talk in reality. $2 million. I adamantly oppose my tax dollars being used for a bike trail. And I'm going to try to give you some examples of why I say that. I'm not a farmer, but I come from a farm background. And we've got bridges in this county that are in horrible condition. Paul knows that. I'd like to replace them all. I work for a dear farmer friend of mine down in the Melbourne Roads area. And I got to tell you that I run tillage equipment for him. It's big equipment. And I have to creep through bridges because they're so narrow and hardly can get through it. And then I wonder if it's going to hold up. When they go in to harvest a field, how are we going to get the grain out of here? well, we gotta go 2 miles over here and we gotta go over here because we got that bridge we can't go across. What would $2 million do to help solve that problem? They got weight restrictions on a lot of those bridges, so they can't use them and so forth. We've got a siren project. Where's Kim? And she here today? I visited with her about that. You've got a project going. That's a great thing. But what she told me is you need to expand it. But what? You don't have the money. What would $2 million do toward that? You got, don't know whether you can do anything to contribute to the cause, but you've got Green Mountain up here that's got a sewer project. Is there something you could do to help spend up there to get that project completed and so forth? So let's do the needs first and then do the wants later. As a homeowner, if I got a roof that's leaking, I'm gonna fix it versus putting in a swimming pool that I might like to have and so forth. So don't use my tax money and don't use other people's tax money for this, because it's nice to have, but it's not a need and so forth. Just because the city fathers spend their money recklessly and spend money for that kind of stuff, doesn't mean the county should do that either. So in the past, you've been very prudent on how you spend my tax dollars, and I appreciate that. Look what you've done to this building and so forth. But don't waste it on a bike trail that we don't have to have. We've got one down here on Highway 330, and I make a joke out of it every time I go to Des Moines. How many people have you seen on the bike trail? 0, 0, 0. So don't, please don't waste my money. Spend it wisely. Spend it for things that we desperately need to repair and needs to fix and so forth, because you've done a good job in the past. So don't follow down their leadership role and spend it recklessly. Thank you.
Thanks, Harold.
Mark Eaton, 1007 South 10th Avenue, Marshalltown. I also own property in the county. I've been thinking about this for a while. Trails, I'm not against trails. Trails, fun thing to do, right? Businesses built on them, things like that. What I'm concerned most about is, I think if you're going to borrow money, I think you should put it before the voters. If you've got future years here, then I think you should put it before the voters. I don't think you should use your constitutional authority, if that's what they call it, to borrow. This $2 million that Trails needs, I know Ann Kaiser has put in, that's why it's called the Ann Kaiser Trailhead. There are at least 3 other nonprofits I know of in the area that have multi-million-dollar endowments. All want economic growth and community development. This can be done with private funds. I don't see, one of the things is I was at the 2 city council meetings past where we talked about this, and yes, the city council voted unanimously for this money, which was already earmarked on the local option sales tax to go to trails. But in the beginning, the way it was presented to the community, I feel a little misled, because in the beginning, it was presented to the city council with a list of people and entities that were going to make up this $2 million, $2.1 million actually. So the city threw their $250,000 on it. But now I don't see anyone coming to the table. The Trails is just standing here asking for a taxing body to take money from everyone the worker at JBS, the 8% unemployed in the county, to pay for an amenity for those who can afford it. And, you know, I know we have a, you know, bike shop here that will, you know, makes an income from that and pays taxes, and I understand all that stuff. Funny thing is, if you want to know how small the world is, I actually consult with one of the engineers that builds the equipment that makes the $3,000 carbon fiber bike rims. So that's how small the world is. But I really don't think the county should commit this 2 million. And I'm really worried on the other end of it, because they want the 2 million now for a grant that, I mean, I think it will, you don't have it to spend, but you're gonna reach out and commit it to a grant. I don't really think that's a good way to do business. And I have a bit of, my third issue is just a personal issue. I have a bit of an issue with Trails Inc. as a whole. We have a 28E agreement with the organization through the city that says the organization is supposed to act as a government entity in open records and open meetings, and they don't do that. And I've requested board member lists, and I've been denied them by the president of the organization. And so I don't think this is a good application of taxpayer dollars. I think if the people want it, the nonprofits and others can fund for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Sheriff.
Sheriff Joel Phillips, Marshall County. I'm not against the trails by any means. A lot of people don't realize we actually use the trails for our physical agility testing annually, and then our employment physical agility. What I'm concerned about is those costs for enforcement. We do have complaints that come up with parking complaints, blocking field drives from the trails. We do have some dog complaints, animal complaints. And also some UTV and ATV issues, and this is obviously a rural area. It's very enticing to some individuals. So, you know, I kind of like Director Herring when it comes down to recreation and those costs, ongoing costs. So please keep that in mind. It's an added, not to say burden, but responsibility for our office.
Do you know how other counties, I mean, obviously these trails are being expanded in the state and around the country. How have other county law enforcement agencies handled?
I think mostly in the metro area, they'll have Polk County Sheriff's Office, and then they have DNR in their county conservation. We have one conservation officer, so there's some labor issues and manpower to be able to enforce a lot of those issues that come up from time to time. And our first responders for our medical emergencies having access and those response times, so. But we've handled a lot for our county conservation, for the dog bites and the animal complaints, so. For the most part, it's been manageable, but when we start expanding, long-term, that's kind of a concern of mine.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Rhonda Broaddus, 911 Director. Just to speak on that as well, some of the things that we might want to consider in there, if it's not considered in advance, it may need to be considered at a later time, but some sort of markers, because oftentimes when it comes to any kind of a bike trail, you're going to have people from outside of the community. They're not going to know where they're at. That becomes a very difficult position when there is an accident or there's a need for medical attention. So we do have, you know, a certain amount of technology that can get us there, but it also depends on, you know, how that technology is built and programmed and so on and so forth. So just something to kind of consider, because if it's not considered in advance, there is always those further costs down the road to make sure that we're somehow identifying to get where people are at.
Thank you, Rhonda. John?
Good morning, John Hall, Marshalltown Area Chamber of Commerce. Really wanted to just provide some context on the way that we are approaching a project like this, thinking about it truly as an economic development opportunity, and doing the same analysis we would do with any economic development project that we'd bring before you or before any other governing body, you know, the simple but-for analysis. But for these resources, would this project take place, and what would the impact look like on that? And so I think it's pretty clear that you've been presented the case on the but-for analysis. You know, we can't leverage these grant resources coming in without some kind of county commitment to get us up and over that amount. But then what is the economic impact that we're truly looking at here? And so there's a couple of examples that I think we can point to within the state of Iowa. First, Northeast Iowa completed a similar kind of trail connection, a similar amount of trails connecting, and ultimately it was about 42 miles of trails that they completed. In 2021, those trails resulted in nearly 400 jobs created, 396 jobs created, an estimated not estimated, a specific $24,828,274 in direct economic impact, and roughly a $61 million overall economic impact as a result of completing that trail system. And that's a one-year economic impact on that. So all of a sudden you can start to see how the small investment, relatively small investment from the county, is able to leverage in a huge economic return for our area. In addition, Ankeny.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, John, that when you cite economic impact numbers, I assume that includes visitor, tourist dollars, as well as increasing business development, so increasing your tax base?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So it's a combination of all of those things. It also looks at the number of times those dollars cycle locally. So if you've got dollars coming in from outside, they turn over so many times in a community before they go outside. There's a lot of pieces in there, but it was a full study that was commissioned to be done to really analyze that. And certainly that'd be something that I think we would look to probably do something similar if we do take this leap and are successful. Is how can our organization make sure that we are fully understanding that economic impact? One of the other examples that we've looked to is Ankeny did an intercept study as they were preparing to do an expansion of their trail system, really trying to understand what the visitor impact looked like. So in 2019, and this is before then COVID, which has only ballooned these numbers, but they did an intercept study on trail usage and found that 34% of the folks that were utilizing the High Trestle Trail were from outside the metro, so outside of the Des Moines metro, from not from Ankeny and not from Ames. So drawing in from nearby communities, and then a full 18% were actually from outside of the state. And so we know that these trail systems are significant draws. I don't think anybody probably realized how significant until we had the opportunity to do some of those studies, and they put that together into ultimately a tourism attraction marketing, not a marketing study, but a marketing plan for leveraging their trail and figuring out where folks were coming from and what those were looking like. And again, that would be something that our organization would look to probably replicate for us as well if we're successful with this. How are we making sure that we're leveraging that asset for attracting folks and visitors from outside the community, but also even outside the state? So, thank you.
Thanks, John.
I'm going to be brief. I know it's been long. Amber Danielson, 803 West Main Street, here in Marshalltown. I was born and raised in Marshalltown. My family, for the later part of my life, in outside Marshalltown in Haverhill, technically. At one point, we had a Marshalltown address and a Haverhill phone number, but you know how that goes. My husband and I are both from Marshalltown, moved away, and intentionally moved our family back to Marshalltown. We've been here for about a decade this summer, and these are the amenities that we are looking for to keep our family long-term here. I mean, this is what gets us excited about how we can experience the community. And we're talking to our friends and fellow graduates of reminding them how wonderful Marshalltown is and thinking about that as their future home. These are the things that are going to attract and retain and engage our residents and future residents. And so this is super exciting. In addition to biking and walking, my son and I have spent time on his scooter. And it is just such a beautiful trail, and I'm so excited about the opportunity to use it more. This is a really exciting project.
Thanks, Amber.
I'm going to join the trail train. Okay, so Deb Millizer, I'm the director of the Marshalltown Central Business District. And so when I was listening to others speak earlier, I was thinking about two things. I was thinking about the downtown businesses and how they are impacted by amenities such as the trails, and hearing about somebody comes to town and they love to eat at Ocean City, or they use Black Tire Bike and all the other amenities, so all of that. And then just from a personal note, I am a new owner of an e-bike. My husband is a new owner of an e-bike. His is actually showing up today. And my family we have embraced, or we're hoping to embrace, the trail system and the amenities that we have here in central Iowa, that we can have fitness, spend time as a family, be able to connect with other communities. It's something that we're really looking forward to. And I can't remember who it was I was speaking to. Maybe it was even Amber, sorry if I'm calling you out here. But I believe that Matt down a Black Tire Bike sells like 2 e-bikes a day.
Oh, wow.
This is something that is really picking up. I wish I could just pedal it myself, but I kind of like having that assistance. So I really see this as a very positive impact economically and for our family's health, our way of life, our well-being, and all of that. And I think that my personal tax dollars, I think this is a great, a little investment for a huge return. So I would like for you to consider it.
Weren't the e-bikes for the elderly?
I nudged Amber and I said, or for those that are just starting. So I rode an e-bike in Florida in March, and I'm going to tie this back to another business on Main Street that Amber also pointed out to me. So Amber just followed me around every day. Britt Marie has a sign in the front of her business that says, if you can't stop thinking about it, buy it. Well, since March, when I rented an e-bike and drove around Daytona Beach, we went 15 miles that day on a pedal assist bike. I have not been able to stop thinking about it. And it is an investment to get it, because then you get the helmets and you get all that goes with it. But it was something that I just could not stop thinking about. And I think more people that have that experience will be doing more of it. And so, I couldn't stop thinking about that. The trails opportunity has come up. So I've joined the trail train to come up here to say, I would love for my tax dollars to be contributed to this.
Will you let Steve try yours out?
Yes, he has to wear the helmet though, because it will go 22 miles an hour on its own. So you have to wear the helmet, and we have to have pictures.
Thanks for sharing.
We'll be sure to get that on YouTube. James, put that in your calendar. Another comment this morning.
Perhaps a retirement activity.
Well, thank you for all the comment on that. That's very helpful, and appreciated to have you here and be a part of our process. We do have the motion the second, correct? And just to add comment here, I appreciate everyone's comments, and the key thing is when you're talking public dollars is what are you doing with it? Are you being wise with it or not? And this is when it's the return on this is a good return. But still, at the same point, I think when it comes to secondary roads, and you're talking roads and bridges, that's a separate bucket. But obviously, still something to be cognizant of, Harold, no doubt about it. And for certain, my goal is to not have to borrow with this. And when you look at any of these kind of projects that are divisive that you obviously heard people from one side and another here. And my goal has always been from running for office and being in office is being very prudent with the tax dollars, as we have, as Harold said. And then when it comes to this point, I knew this was going to come up, and I knew this is something to take seriously. I mean, when it's your tax dollars, you take seriously. But if you want to have good things, if you want to invest in your community, you have to do these types of investments. And if you do it, well, then you have to, if you want to have your cake, you got to eat it too. And if you're going to eat it too, we have to do our end of the bargain of being A, continuing fiscally responsible in our budget and find efficiencies to help pay for it. B, utilize our resources and try to find that extra funding so it's not coming from the property tax bucket, that we're able to fund it in other ways. And that the bottom line on your taxes remains low and stays within, just like we talked about. We want to stay within the margin of growth in that 2.5%, 3%. That's the state model that's been provided to us. That's the model that we're working towards. And for us to do this, we are going to work it into that. That is my goal on this. And so, and with this commitment today, it's not allocating it into the budgets yet. And so we still have that time to work into it and utilize our resources. So that's where I'm going to feel comfortable supporting that today on this vote. But I didn't want to give that explanation as we've had a lot of very good interested parties here today. And I do know that in the support of this, if it is passed by our board today, that I do know that Harold and Mark will keep me accountable on this. So, and I appreciate that because that's an important key part of the process. Any other board comment?
I've been asked to not spend any property tax dollars on this. That being said, I'm all about this. I think it's great. It's wonderful what you guys are wanting to do here. Is there any other options for funding this? What about lost funds? Can we leverage that in any way to be a part of this?
I would think the formula that we have on lost, I would think it's all allocated, but
Okay.
now we haven't formally had the petition completed and brought to be put on the ballot for this fall yet. So I suppose that could be something that is in a petition to be changed, to be
That
included in
easily
this.
could be done, because currently it's 50% roads for 50% reduction of property taxes, but that could be done differently.
The timing for this is not good. I'm sorry to be a Debbie Downer here, but we've got some troubled times coming up here in Marshall County. And we've got to keep that in mind. I think you know what we were referring to here. So I guess keep that in mind in your vote.
Yeah. Well, and I respect everyone's opinion here,
Oh,
and I
absolutely.
certainly understand all sides of the argument. It's, for me, it's the leveraging 2 million to get 12 is just an opportunity that almost never comes up.
I understand.
And so, you know, if we can get this done in that way, with the idea that we could possibly receive additional funding that would allow us to reduce our obligation. And we can talk about whether that's what we want to do at the time or not. But I just think this is an opportunity that just doesn't come along very much.
I understand.
Any further discussion?
No.
All right, thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Hibbs,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Solosik,
No.
Motion carries. On to number 9, donation to Marshalltown Fireworks, discussion and possible action. Last year, we had donated $2,000 to the fireworks fund. We did that out of our economic development line item, and I was asked if that's something we want to do again this year. That dollar amount or different dollar amount?
Do you know how much we did last year?
It was $2,000.
Okay. Good,
He
thank
just
you.
said that.
I'm glad, yeah, I missed that part because I was still writing down what we were talking about in the last one.
Any thoughts on that?
Where does this money come from?
The
Maybe a line
economic
item.
development.
Economic
line.
development. I'd make a motion,
I'll second.
What is the motion?
2,000.
To match last year? We have the motion, the second on the 2,000 for the fireworks. Further discussion? Discussion from public?
Mark Eaton, 1007 South 10th Avenue. Just to let you know, the city, I think, is spending 5,000. So
Oh, keep the score here.
since you're spending money today, make it 5.
He's asking us to up the ante.
Is that a request to increase our funding, Mark?
Go ahead. You're gonna spend it, might as well spend it on fun stuff. Benefits the whole community.
Any other discussion? Thanks, Harold.
Harold Lanning again. Mark, I respect your position, but just because Marshalltown city fathers do stupid things, don't county do them too.
Thank you, Harold. All right. Any other further discussion from the public? Any discussion from Steve Carroll? Roll call, please.
Hibbs,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Velocity.
Yes.
And that was for 2,000.
Yes.
Um,
I was getting excited that, sorry, I'm not older. It's exciting that Mark's at 5.
check to, do we know who it goes to? Or should I look to last year?
We'll look at last year's.
Okay, I'll figure that out. I'll send myself another email.
Thank you. All right, number 10. Secondary Roads Precast Box Culvert Loss C67X64 Letting. So we had bids without, they were missing the full requirements last time.
Open this one. Can we open that one? That's the new one. Okay. I'm sending myself the $2,000 email.
We had confusion amongst from the bidders on whether we allowed a bid bond. And so because there was not a bid bond included or a proposal guarantee with one of the bids, we didn't read any of the bids. And we basically have retained, the things from the letting. None of the bid numbers were released, so
This one we'll get rid of.
we invited our bidders to turn in the proper proposal guarantee, and we'll just proceed as we advertise for bidders.
Perfect.
Previously. So it's a proposal guarantee of $4,000 or an equivalent bid bond. The bid bond really is just a thing that is the company saying, if awarded, I'll sign the contract and provide the materials. And if they don't do that, they lose that bid bond or that proposal guarantee.
Okay, so we've got Mid-States Precast Products, which they send us an updated with the $4,000 check. And so that's their guarantee. And, so I assume I get a price here, I see it. Their total structure price, $100,011.48. And I'm gonna see what's on page, that's 2 pages. Yeah, and it's got the same thing. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna put that one there, and I'm gonna look at the other one because I think it was a bond on,
Bid bond.
bid bond on this one. And but nobody had seen this price, because when we looked at it before, all we did was look for a check. And, okay, so.
You see a bid bond?
That's a bid bond?
Yep.
Okay, does it tell us a dollar amount? It's a surety company.
At the very top of the state.
Does it have a dollar amount then? Oh, here, bid bond on this one. I love it when you're not supposed to open things ahead of time. Oh, $4,000, CNA surety bid bond, $4,000. We've got the bid bond there. Okay.
So many different.
I know.
doing these bonds.
I wish it wasn't sealed so you could like read it before. It'd make it so much easier. So we have the bid bond for $4,000. And their total bid, and this company is Rinker, Rinker Materials. And their price is $132,000 even.
Okay. So you have it kind of lined up where you accept the, and place on file, there's an A and a B on the.
We have we have two, right? And the only question would be, obviously in my mind, I always think the lower one is better. Is the lower company
Is there a reason not to accept
to accept the
lower?
lowest one?
There's none that I'm aware of.
Okay. Are they a
We can work, yeah.
qualified company?
And you worked with them before?
No, but that's a fairly new outfit. The Mid-States, if you're familiar, it's down by Bondurant, and it's a completely new facility. So this would be our first
I've seen it.
Okay.
interaction with them.
Okay.
Is there any other bidders that?
Anyone else? Yeah, anyone? I think we know everyone here, so I don't think anyone here started a new business.
And repeat what those bids were, please.
Okay, so we've got Mid-State Precast Products for $100,011.48, and Rinker Materials for $132,000 even.
So we need a motion for a motion to place on file the bids received. Okay, by the auditor recorders. Okay, so I'll make the motion to place those bids on file.
I'll second.
Good motion, second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hibbs,
Yes?
Heil,
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
And then we need a motion to accept the low bid. Is that your recommendation?
Yeah, I would recommend that we award to Mid-States Precast is it of Bondurant?
Of Bondurant, Iowa, yeah. 2340 Hubble Avenue Southwest, Bondurant.
That would be my recommendation.
All right.
I'll make a motion that we award lost C6 7X64 to Mid-States Precast Products of Bondurant in the amount of $100,011.48. And authorize the chair to sign.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Hibbs,
Yes?
Heil,
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
Good to have that one done.
Yeah.
Good work on that, guys, and thanks to both Rinker and Mid-State for being bidders and participating on that.
Now that we got the numbers of the contract typed up, get it through, have them sign it, we'll get it to you, have you sign it.
Perfect. Thank you very
And
much.
if you can do it electronically, he does have an electronic signature now.
Yep. Awesome. All right, now going back to the 5B II. Status changes, Marshall County Engineer, two positions here. Jill Tompkins from Administrative Assistant to Assistant, to Administrative Assistant to Engineer, full-time, $24.32 per hour to $70,000 annual salary effective June 6, 2024. And Lisa Reeder from Administrative Assistant to Office Manager, full-time, from $23.46 per hour to $30.50 per hour effective June 6th. Discussion.
First of all, is this one action item or is it two action items?
We will do it as two action items, but figure we just do the discussion for
Okay.
both because it looks like it's an office restructure.
It is. It's on agenda. It really looks like it's a raise, but it is not. It's a reclassification. It's a new positions for both of these people that have a good share of their older duties and a good share of newer duties. So it's basically a reorganization of the staff in my office. It would involve us going down from 6 people to 5 people, and that's the real reason why there's added duties. And Jill, I'm proposing to move Jill over to the other assistant to engineer position that was vacated by retirement over a year ago. And it's been very difficult to find people for that position. Candidates have very little experience and no county experience. We were very lucky to get Bruce hired, and that also allowed this reorganization to take place, because what I have with moving Jill over to assistant is an experienced assistant who can help Jill learn the ropes. In 1995, when I started here, I learned how to do my job by going through the files and finding Ed Casper's files and doing things the way he did them. There was nobody to train me. Royce didn't have time, and I'm not sure Royce knew exactly how to do Ed's job, which that's what I'm finding too, is that, I don't know everything that my assistants are doing, even though they're doing it in my direction. How bad does that sound? But
And we also have this
but I
person
learned
sitting
by
there.
just going through the files. Nowadays, so many of what used to be on paper files is now electronic, and finding the things that your predecessor did aren't quite as easy as they used to be. But that's when I'm looking at filling that assistant position and I can't find anybody with county experience, then it was just like, well, what if I see if Jill wants to move up to this? I know she, and I asked her if she was at all interested, and there's a lot to learn and a lot of certifications and just experience and things that she'd have to learn to be able to do the job. But if I'm going to hire somebody with limited experience and qualifications, I may as well hire somebody who I know their work ethic, and I know that she's compatible with the band of crazies that I've got in my office. And it's like, I tell people, it's like we're 5 brothers and sisters, and right now we have a team where we get along and we can, I can't think of a family of 5 brothers and sisters where they all get along. Do you guys know of this ever happening? It's
You get a good team. It's
really
rare. It is
and,
rare.
And
So
when
that's
you don't
great.
have that team, it's amazing what it can reduce you to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good fit for what we're doing now. It'll be quite a bit of time before they're both up to speed on, and I think Lisa will be up to speed on her duties, because we're adding things that Jill is currently doing to her. We're taking pieces of Jill's job and moving it over to the office manager position. She's going to be handling all of the HR stuff that we do. We do some of the HR things when we do a new hire, as far as, getting the physicals and getting things that, dealing with scheduling vacation and dealing with insurance and vehicles and licensing, and that's all.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question,
yeah.
Paul? So you're reducing your total staff by 1 of what was budgeted for, right?
Right.
And you'd be increasing these salaries based on absorbing new duties that they don't currently do.
And the
Go-
increase.
Go ahead.
The increases are based on what other counties
What
pay
other
these
counties?
positions
So-
for.
So going forward, can you give us an idea of the percentage of what they will be doing that will be new to them? Like,
Yeah, I would say that Lisa's with office manager, she would, at least a third of her duties would be new. But with Jill, it's probably 2/3 of her duties are gonna be new.
okay.
And I also looked at, when we're looking at the big picture on what I pay for wages and salaries in my office, because they're sizable increases in pay. But with, and I'm just being optimistic that I could have hired a full-time employee at assistant to engineer for another one for $85,000. With limited experience and qualifications, it would still be $85,000. Put benefits on that, we're at $119 a year for that position. My increases for Jill and Lisa with benefits included annually goes to just under $48,000, which that means the salary and wages, I'm dropping $71,000 a year You know, that's an annual, that, if we can make, you know, as far as making this downsizing of the office work. The jobs change, the duties change, the time constraint, the time required changes. When I worked for Royce in 95, I was one of 8. We had, you know, eight people in our office with 3 techs, or 2 techs, a surveyor, 2 assistants, 2 administrative assistants, and Royce. And it was, so we're slowly, you know, we were just redefine the job. There's a lot of things in Lisa's and Jill's, with the proposed jobs, that aren't in any job description, because we haven't, you know, you have to change the job description every 2 years to keep that current, and it's been at least 9 since we did the administrative assistant one, so even that one is outdated.
So you'll update job descriptions for them?
Yes. Well, the assistant one is pretty good, because we just hired Bruce and we've got one together for him. But the office manager would be a new position, so there would be a new job description
New
completely
job.
there that's.
Do we have a process in the county for that? Like, or is it
I'm not
just
aware of-
department by department? What are,
Yeah, we've got some as we replace people, and we're working on kind of trying to do it department by department. Anybody that's willing, we work with them.
Years ago, we used to have that subcommittee of the personnel policy of those department heads would meet, and a new position like this would be brought to it. I think it's basically to look at if it's a similar grade position that whatever the structure is being put together is kind of agreed to upon by the department heads. I think the point of that's because this is a non-union and.
Yeah, both.
But we have no job codes here.
Well, we did. We did at one point. I don't know how updated they are, but that was the point of that group, is knowing if there were similar grade positions that we weren't getting out of whack, so that basically it wasn't the county feeding upon each other. That was the point of that. I don't think since you've been here that group has even ever met.
No,
It was-
and
it was
what Mary
pre-
showed me is that they weren't in alignment at all. So, yeah.
So.
And I used the information I have for fiscal '23 pay surveys, so I know what other counties are paying this position. There's a wide range in assistants and in office managers, and it's just kind of trying to pick out counties that are similar in size to us and see where we lay in the mix.
We may have a good opportunity for our county. Perla may, a whole bunch of counties may do it, where we may have an opportunity to spend just a few $1,000s to leverage everybody doing it together. And to spend, $5,000, $6,000, which seems like a good way to do it if we all do it together. And gather some information for all of us together.
And I think the other thing to note too is that I think I can get this reducing one person in the office without eliminating any services that we're doing right now.
I guess, Paul, my concern is, this is different than my management strategy while I was managing. Do you feel there's some value in a tiered approach to this? Jill will be increasing $23,000 a year. Lisa will be $16,000 to $18,000.
You could maybe do tiered, but we don't have a step system. And so all we get for increases here are cost of living and what you guys,
Can't you control, every 6 months, do a review and see if they're meeting their goals?
There's ways you can make it work, but we don't have a step pay system here. There's a lot of places that have 12, 13 steps, in any position. They would start at the low end of it, and then every year they would get cost of living plus their step. But, once they're maxed out on steps, then you're at what the position pays, I would see over the course of, 10 years, Jill's going up as she gains more of the experience, similar to like what Bruce has, and Bruce, you remember Bruce is at 95.
And so Bruce's position is the same as what Jill's
On
position
paper,
will
the
be.
same position as assistant to engineer, but, Bruce had 14 years of experience and all the qualifications in place from doing that job for a long time at Hardin County.
I do think there's an opportunity for the county to have a more uniform process
For
for
our
review
non-union.
and evaluation of non-union positions. I don't necessarily like the idea of a rigid system that doesn't allow for increases based on merit. You know, are they doing a good job or not?
That should be the department heads'
Yeah.
decisions, and
Yeah, I mean, we have given them that flexibility in the, last budget year or so to increase up to the amount we set based on merit. So I like the idea of keeping the department heads in control of that instead of a rigid system that just automatically moves people up.
I don't think I think the assistant to engineer, that doesn't sound out of line compared to what assistant engineer positions are. The office manager one, I'm not familiar enough to if we even have a similar position that within any other departments and where that fits with that. That's budgetary wise, what you're trying to do, that all makes perfect sense. That's
Well,
probably
and
the only piece I'm not
And the
certain
range
of.
I'm seeing in the counties, it goes from what would be the equivalent of about $45,000 a year up to $100,000 a year
Jeez.
for that position. Okay, it's
That's a gap.
It's a huge
It's a big
range,
gap.
and
It
it's
varies so much across the state.
And then if these are effective today, is the adjustment coming at July 1 on top?
3% would be that was
Would be on
what I
top
would
of
think,
this
yes.
at July 1.
And that would take Jill's position to 72.1 and Lisa's hourly to 31.42. I think.
I guess in the future, I would like to see us grow into those positions and award those people as they fulfill testing that they have to do, whatever they need to be involved, whatever they have to be involved in
And
their
both
job.
Jill and Lisa have been already started that. They're doing the jobs
Again,
that these positions are required. That,
Tiered approach would have been my choice.
but they were doing it without any increase in pay. I see what you're saying. It's just we don't have that step system in place.
Yeah, we don't have a step
Yeah,
system.
we-
And they're,
But
But
you
we
could,
do, we
as
do
a-
need a review process, I think.
Couldn't you create a step process in your department?
Yeah. Yeah, we could do it. I mean, or we could do it as it's a, I don't know if you would call it probationary, because it's tough to take somebody who's a longtime employee and say you're in a probationary position right now.
That's going a little
You know,
far, I
that's,
think.
I knew a gal at the DOT that was a Tech 3, and she would never go to Tech 4 because she saw it in the paperwork that she could be fired in 90 days if she didn't fulfill the duties of the Tech 4. So she never applied for promotion. You know? But we don't need that in our step, policy, but.
well, I suppose we have two options here. We approve this because it's within budget, it's creating efficiencies in your department. Or we do some type of salary study within our own organization. I don't know what the time frame would be on that and how that works.
Yeah, they're just starting that with IPERLA right now, and so that, that timing is gonna be not
Yeah.
great for what he's trying to do.
That won't work.
No,
We have
I mean,
to
that I don't feel good about at all. But
make a
I do
decision
see
today.
that we may have an answer coming down the road, and we've discussed that in budget meetings, last year quite a bit. The cost was super expensive a year ago, and that just,
What's the timeline for achieving their certifications that are necessary? Is it just Jill that needs to do that?
Jill will get the certifications through the DOT, and they're classes that you can only take when the DOT offers them. So that's probably gonna take a year.
Okay.
Because a lot of the certification classes, they only offer once a year.
Yeah.
oh, well, that won't be too bad then.
So I will make the motion regarding Jill's position, that it she be designated from administrative assistant to engineer full-time, going to 70,000 annual salary effective June 6,
I'll second.
2024.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Hibbs,
Yes?
Kyle,
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
Motion carries. Do we have a motion on leases?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that Lisa Rita from administrative assistant to office manager full-time from $23.46 per hour to $30.50 per hour, effective June 6, 2024.
I'll second that.
We have the motion and a second. Any further discussion on this?
I would just direct that we move forward with
Yeah.
some kind of review process and study so that we
Well,
know,
we'll
we
put-
have a better concept of, to make informed decisions from here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hibbs,
Yes?
Kyle,
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
Thank you for all that, and
All
that's,
right.
I think
Thank you.
we've known that we've needed to take a look at our non-union employees to make sure that we got some consistency. with the
I will
organization. This is good.
respond to the group and say Marshall County's in.
What I've found out through this whole thing with trying to hire assistants is you just can't make people. You can't, you can pay whatever you want. If the people to fill the positions are not on the street, you can't fill the position.
And the key thing is you found efficiencies in doing this. I mean, we're having an efficiency process in doing it from your department, so
Yes.
that is exactly what we want to see. And so now we just have another piece to be working on. So, thank you, everyone, for that. We're now on to Resolution 2024-23, or yes. No, we're on to 11.
No.
Sorry,
Oh,
jumping
11.
ahead.
Wait,
Number
whoa, whoa,
11.
whoa,
Easy.
I'm being an agenda hog, I see that.
Approve supplemental agreement with Calhoun Burns and Associates of West Des Moines for Marshall County Bridge D16 and authorize the chair to sign.
And this is an agreement to take the final design of our, take it to basically to letting. This project, I just got an email this morning that the letting was delayed now until the November letting. It originally was gonna be let last January, and it's just, we're waiting on environmental cultural clearances. And part of it is because at the DOT, there's been, do you remember me talking with you guys about swap funding? When you did swap funding, we took state money and they took the federal money, and we didn't have to do all the federal, business to do a project. This is not, with the new funding bill, the DOT doesn't have enough money to swap all of the federal money. So we're back on the world of federal aid projects. And so then we need to get the NEPA clearances, and there's been kind of a backup with the department at the DOT that takes care of these clearances. And so anyway, this project will be let. It appears in November, but we still need this NEPA clearance to be able to proceed. But this agreement is to just take this through project finalization, get it ready for letting.
Okay.
This is D16. It's just east of Durham Avenue on 140th, and it's an old structure that you can see on that picture right there that part of the rail has deconstructed itself on the east end and the west end.
Awesome.
And it's still there, but maybe force a habit keeping it there. So we're gonna get that bridge replaced, but it's likely gonna be next construction season with a November letting.
How much farm traffic goes over this?
A lot more if a road coast is
Yeah.
It is weight restricted. Do you remember what the restriction
I don't
is?
know what it is currently now, but it's narrow also.
So not a lot.
It's
They go around.
And many of our older bridges, even if they are able to hold the loads that they could hold when they were built, they're geometrically obsolete because they're not as wide enough for the implements that we're seeing.
I'll make a motion to approve a supplemental agreement with Calhoun Burns and Associates of West Des Moines for Marshall County Bridge D16 and authorize the chair to sign.
I'll second.
We have the motion, the second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Hibbs,
Yes?
Kyle,
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
Number 12, Resolution 2024-23, reappropriation of funds for fiscal year 23-24. Whereas pursuant to Section 331-4346, Code of Iowa, reapportionment of funds is necessary following resolutions for the 23-24 decrease in appropriations. Now therefore be resolved that the estimated appropriations approved by the boards for various departments in the county be adjusted as follows. That is all submitted for the record. Bottom line, nothing changes on the bottom line. I noticed the differences we're seeing, and the attorney went down, health went up, E911 towers up, county capitol building down. What exactly was that difference in that, of why they went up?
Okay, so we had $40,000. It's basically reappropriation for budget money so we can cover expenses for the remainder of the year.
Okay.
So it's money from the attorney's office going to for Sydney's budget in public health.
Was there for a particular item, or was just?
It was for her Stop the Bleed grant.
Okay.
It was for her grant money that it didn't get budgeted this
Yep.
year. And so, and then also the $10,000 for the 911 towers, and that was taken from the capital. Maria said there was money there, so we just moved that $10,000 to cover that for some expenses that needed to be covered. So that was there on the second page, that 10,000, and then the 40,000 there between, that went up in number 23 and down in number 4. So so the totals are the same, and it's just budget dollars.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for that information.
Yes, Maria gave me a very nice note before she left.
Good deal.
I'll make a motion then to adopt Resolution 2024-0023, reappropriation of funds for fiscal year 23 and 24.
I'll second that.
We have the motion, the second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Hibbs,
Yes?
Kyle,
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
On to Resolution 2024-24, stopping eastbound traffic on 320th Street at the intersection of 320th Street and Abbott Avenue at the southeast corner of Section 24 Township 82N, Range 17W, Greencastle Township.
This is a stop approach that I am proposing because we have a situation where it's the county line with Tama, and it's an opposing stop. Westbound is an opposing stop coming from it, and it also changes to a dirt road right there in Abbott. And so the eastbound 320th doesn't have a stop. So I usually like to have stop signs opposing if it's eastbound and westbound, but the other problem is too is to not have a stop where a road basically becomes a dirt road. I want people to stop and read that sign to see if they want to proceed to the east. But so that's all. It's just a situation where I try to oppose stop signs whenever I can.
Perfect. Any questions?
No. I'll make the motion. As soon as Steve gets back, he can second it, but I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-0024, stopping eastbound traffic on 320th at the intersection of 320th and Abbott Avenue in the southeast corner of Section 24, Township 82 North, Range 17 West, Greencastle Township.
We have the motion for this stop sign.
I would
you
be
like to
glad to second that.
We have a motion and the second. Did you need any information on this?
Actually, I've read this, so I'm good.
And there currently is a stop sign westbound on 320th coming from Tama County, so it's just it adds the opposing stop sign eastbound.
Perfect. We have the motion and the second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hibbs,
Yes?
Kyle,
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
Number 14, Marchtown Development Group, LLC, rent checks, discussion, possible action. Basically, this is the mall. They have paid their taxes. The debate is whether to issue the checks now or not. They still have not paid their utility bill. And that's where I'm inclined to not want to pay that yet, but we'll open that up for discussion.
So, yeah, they've met their lease with us. They've not met their lease with anyone else, to my understanding.
With anyone else? We're the only tenant they've met their lease with?
I think so.
The only one?
Well,
That's
maybe the
interesting.
people that slept there that didn't have a lease, the homeless people.
Steve?
I know, it's really weird.
You're still holding checks, am I right? You still got them pegboard up and,
Yeah.
they go
Yes.
back almost 9 months now, or 7 months? Or-
Yeah, we go back to, I believe, November.
What does that do for, well, accounting wise, if they're held and gone into the next fiscal year, because that's what's upon us.
Yes, that's what's upon us, and I mean,
Procedure wise, either way.
either way, it doesn't,
Obviously, this is a messy situation that we've had here,
I
and
know.
messy situation for all of our tenants, former tenants, because of that, and they're not fulfilling the obligation of everyone else in the building. I would not like to do it, but if that's something that the board member would like to do, we can have that vote on that and decide what we're doing going forward.
Well, my hold was they owed us money.
Right.
You know, that was always my hold on it. They hadn't paid taxes or weren't current on what they owed to the county. And now they're current on what they owe to the county.
I was the same way. That was my thought process. I would make a motion to pay them at this point.
I'll second that.
All right, we have the motion, the second. Do we have any further discussion on this? Discussion from the public.
For me.
Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Hibbs,
Yes.
Heil,
No.
Solosik,
Yes.
Motion carries. On to number 15, approve the YSS Marshall County Contract 2024-25 and authorize the chair to sign. This contract is for the no change from the previous year at $11,000 that was
Right.
approved by the board and in our budget. Of this amount, $8,000 will be paid in 4 installments of $2,000, paid August 1st, November 1st, February 1st, and May 1st. Remaining $3,000 will be billed based upon a unit of service reimbursement arrangement as described in
So,
the
and
contract.
we actually signed it in May of last year, so this is the time we signed it roughly last year too.
So did David submit this? David Hicks?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Joel, has there been any change in what's available to the sheriff's department through this arrangement? We had talked about maybe having more access to the impact program or support for the county?
Yeah. No, it hasn't. It's been the same as it's.
Okay. Do we have any support to the county?
We've notified them, and we have individuals that could potentially benefit from those services, but typically it's the hours and the staffing that's not available, and we kind of help them any way we can for those individuals that are needing assistance.
So have we ever made use of the impact program?
It's not from lack of trying, but
Yeah, they're just not available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, do we have
I
any?
don't like that.
It's tradition, Carol. It's tradition.
I know.
No, I understand your thought.
Well, this was the amount we approved in our budget, through our budget process. Is there any other further discussion? We don't have a motion yet, do we?
No.
I would like to pay the $11,000 to YSS for this coming year, 24-25,
And approve the contract?
and approve the contract.
I'll second.
This is year by year, isn't it?
Correct.
This is year by
Yep.
year, so.
I'll second the motion. Steve, do you want to talk to David about perhaps the county accessing
I can,
services?
I would, yes.
All right, we have the motion. Did we have a second?
Yes.
Yes, we have a motion, second. Discussion, Rhonda, thank you.
Rhonda Broadus, 911 Director. Just to let you guys know, so there is a a schedule that comes out to the communication center as to when they're on duty and so on and so forth. It's never been mentioned in the past that there's anything for county. This is more of a city schedule, so we don't have any of that information either. I just want to make sure you were aware of that.
Okay. Thanks, Rhonda.
You're welcome.
So Steve, you'll address that situation? Okay.
Any other further questions, comments, concerns? All right, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Hibbs,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Solosik,
Yes.
On to number 16, public forum, time set aside for the public to make comments on topics of county business other than those listed on the agenda. No action will be taken on any of these topics brought up in the public forum. The floor is yours. Harold.
Harold Lanning, 1994 Vine Avenue. I just bring this up as information, probably you're aware of it, but if you have any political clout that you can come put to bear on this, what I'm talking about is the Rural Water Association is faced with a situation where our water rates are going to be doubling. And I talked to one of the board members who's on that board and did a little bit background. And this will affect approximately 55,000 patrons because it goes all the way to Waverly and so forth. And it's a dispute that arisen out of Newton changing the rate structure that they charge the rural water to get their water. And I think it particularly some of these farmers with hog confinements, large cattle thing, and they have a huge water bill as it is now, and it's gonna double. My water bill is enough, but when it's a double increase and so forth. So if you have any clout or any influence, talk to the people in Newton, the city fathers there, and see if you can get some, they're proceeding with legal avenue and so forth, but whether it's going to be productive or not, it's too early to tell. But it's a serious situation
What's
affecting
the
a lot of people.
timeline of that, Harold?
Pardon me?
When do they plan to do that?
The raises?
Yeah.
He didn't have a definite answer because they're proceeding along the legal courses and to see, you know, if they
They're
can
still
get
trying to
this.
negotiate, aren't they?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
letters in this month's billing
Yeah.
statements, and it didn't really say.
No, because they don't really know, but they're pursuing legal actions, but said they're not being very cooperative, they're not being willing to sit down and visit. As he explained it to me, they had a water department, but now the city took it over. And I guess his comment was, I guess they want us to pay for a new water treatment plant that they want to have and so forth. They're talking about drilling a well of their own and a treatment plant, but he said that's 5 years down the road, that could even be realistic and so forth. So it's a serious problem that's going to affect a lot of people and a lot of people in Marshall County, as other counties as well. So if you have any clout with them, please exercise it. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Any further public comment today?
We lived through the primary election, and
Well
our
done.
reporting was uploaded, and I think we were uploaded by 9:30 last night.
Yes.
So it went pretty well. Heard from our counterpart up in Grundy. It was his first election after the retirement of Rhonda, and his stuff got reported on the wrong party, but he got it fixed. So Alan that's always a little unnerving, but he got it fixed, so.
We're watching the local legislative races, saw the Marshall County stuff come in, and then waited and waited and waited for Story
Nothing.
County.
I know.
So you won the race, Nan.
I know, but it's like Story. I'm like, nothing's reported forever.
Yeah.
So I haven't heard what happened over there.
How'd the sheriff come out?
He barely squeaked by too. Both of us barely made it, but we beat the blanks that were against us.
Well done.
Great. Well, good job to you and your team on getting through another election.
Yes. And at our new location, our chair had to drive back and lock the door, but someone was there to make sure that it was secure.
Good deal.
So, yes. Thanks to all that were helped and assisted with that. It went well.
Good deal. Any other public forum? James, anyone online? Perfect. All right. Thank you, everybody here for being here today. We're on to number 17, adjournment. Next regular sessions Wednesday, June 19th, 2024 at 9 a.m. Courthouse, first floor, meeting room, 1 East Main Street. All business to act upon in that session should be submitted to the auditor and recorder's office or board of supervisors office by Wednesday, June 12th, 2024 at noon. There being no further business to come before the board, meeting is adjourned at 11:04 a.m. And we do have another meeting, June 26th.
So we have 19 and 26 is an extra
extra
for claims.
for end of year. So
And for anything I do wrong, Maria will be back to fix it.
there we go. Thank you.
And we have to canvass the vote.
The canvas is